Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jayam Vishnupada Prahamsa Pivakacharya Shritasati Srimad, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki, ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki, Jayam Vishnupada Prahamsa Pivakacharya Shritasati Srimad, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki, Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki, Jai Nitai Gautam Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 3, titled Hiranyakashipu's Plan to Become Immortal, texts 2 through 10. So I'll just read 2 through 9, and then do the repetition word for word. 10. Sate Mandarajonyam Tapaparam Adarunam Urdhva Bahurnapo Drishti Padam Kushta Ritavani Ishatani Biti Reje Samvartarka Ivam Shubi Tasmin Tapas Tapyamane Deva Stanani Bejire Tasya Murdana Samudbutta Sadhumodnis Tapomaya Tiryag Urdvam Adyolokan Pratapad Vishvan irta, Chukshuburnadhyudanvanta, Sadvi Padrish, Chalavu, Nipetu Sagrahastara, Jajvalush Chadisho Dasha, Vinatapta Nivam Tyaktva, Brahmalokam Yayusuga, Datre Vigyapayam Asur Deva Deva Jagat Pate Deitmeta Pusatapa Divistanam Sa Shakmimam Tasya Chopashnamam Puman Videhi Yadi Manyase Lokanayaman Nang Shyanti Bali Haras Tavan Prihu Tasyayam Kila Sankalpash Charato Dushcharam Tapa Shuryatam Kim Naviditas Tavatapi Niveditam Shrishva Chara Charamidam Tapo Yogam Samadhinam Aidyaste Sarvadish Yebya Param Meshti Nijasanam. This one we should repeat. So 9 and 10.
Yushva Charanidam Tapo Yoga Samadhina Adhyaste Sarvadishnevya Parameshti Vichashanam
Tadaham Vardamanena
Taraham Varamanena
Tapo Yoga Samadhinam
Tapo Yoga Samadhina
Latmanos Chadnityadvat
Janityapat
Sadhishe Tatamana.
Sarayishe Tatama
We'll just repeat. Tadaham Vardamanena Tapo Yoga Samadhina
Tapo Yoga Samadhina
Kalasmanos Chanityadvat
Janityapat
Sadhishe Tatamana
Sarayishe Tatama
Tadaham Vardamanena Tapo Yoga Samadhina Kalasmanos Chanityadvat Sadhishe Tatatmanam. Dr. Pete Prabhu.
Tadaham
Vardhamanena
Tapo Yoga Samadhina
Tapo Yoga Samadhina
Talatmanos Chinityatvat
Kalatmanos Chanityatvat
Sarayishe Tatama
Sahadhishe Tatatmanam Shristva creating Chara
Chara
moving Achara and not moving Idam this Tapa of austerity Yoga and mystic power Samadhina by practicing the trance Adhyaste is situated in Sarvadish Evya then all the planets, including the heavenly planets. Parameshji, Lord Brahma, Nija Asana, his own throne. Tat, therefore, Aham, I, Vardhamanina, by dint of increasing, Tapa, austerity, yoga, mystic power, samadhina, and trance, kala, of time, atmanam, and of the soul, cha, and Nityavat, from the eternality, Sadaya, Sadayishe, shall achieve, Tata, so much, Atmanan, for my personal self. Translations and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. In the valley of Mandara Hill, Hiranyakashipu began performing his austerities by standing with his toes on the ground, keeping his arms upward and looking towards the sky. This position was extremely difficult, but he accepted it, the means to attain perfection. From the hair on Hiranyakashipu's head, there emanated an effulgent light as brilliant and intolerable as the rays of the sun at the time of dissolution. Seeing the performance of such austere penances, the demigods who had wandered throughout the universe now returned to their respective homes. Because of Hiranyakashipu's severe austerities, fire came from his head, and his life and this fire and its smoke spread throughout the sky, encompassing the upper and lower planets, which all became extremely hot. Because of the power of his severe austerities, all the rivers and oceans were agitated. The surface of the globe, with its mountains and islands, began trembling, and the stars and planets fell. All directions were ablaze. Scorched and immediate and extremely disturbed because of Hiranyakashipu's severe penances, all the demigods left the planets where they reside and went to the planet of Lord Brahma, where they informed the Creator as follows: O Lord of the demigods, O Master of the universe, because of the fire emanating from Hiranyakashipu's head as a result of his severe austerities, we have become so disturbed that we cannot stay on our planets, but have come to you. O great person, chief of the universe, if you think it proper, kindly stop these disturbances, meant to destroy everything, before all your obedient subjects are annihilated. Hiranyakashipu has undertaken a most severe type of austerity. Although his plan is not unknown to you, kindly listen as we submit his intentions. The supreme person within this universe, Lord Brahma, has gotten his exalted post by dint of severe austerities, mystic power, and trance. Consequently, after creating the universe, he has become the most worshipable demigod within it. Since I am eternal and time is eternal, I shall endeavor for such austerity, mystic power, and trance for many, many births. And thus I shall occupy the same post occupied by Lord Brahma. Purport. Hiranyakashipu's determination was to occupy the post of Lord Brahma, but this was impossible because Lord Brahma has a long duration of life. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Ahar Yad Brahmano Vidu. 1,000 yugas equals 1 day of Brahma. The duration of Brahma's life is extremely great, and consequently, it was impossible for Hiranyakashipu to occupy that post. Nonetheless, his decision was that since the self, Atma, and time are both eternal, if he could not occupy that post in one lifetime, he would continue to execute austerities life after life, so that sometime he would be able to do so. Om Agena Dharmandasya Ginanjana Shlakaya Chakshamachalyana Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Giradhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we are getting into the next phase of Hiranyakashipu's story. for the story of Hiranyakashipu, Prahlad, Lord Nrsimha, where Hiranyakashipu is starting to undertake his austerities. That is, he has decided that he wanted to become free from the miseries of the material universe, including old age and death. And in the Vedic system, well, really in any system, if one wants something, one has to perform austerities. The Vedic system, these are yogic austerities. As we heard, he took up a yogic pose of standing on his toes with his hands pointed towards the sky and looking up. But of course, in the modern society, our austerities are going to school, getting a job in order to get money or some other goal we have. But in any case, one must perform austerities. And Hiranyakashipu's determination was that he wished to take the position of Lord Brahma, which is the topmost person within this universe. That he wanted to be the one in charge. Basically, that because of his demoniac mentality, he wanted to be in a higher position than everyone else. The divine mentality is, of course, of being a servant. The demoniac mentality is to be a master. That I am the one in control, that I can do what I wish. And he took up austerities in order to get this position as Lord Brahma in the mind of Hiranyakashipu. And in a certain sense, it is true that Lord Brahma is the master of everyone in this universe. So he is the progenitor of all living beings within this particular universe. And he is considered the most powerful being that comes from within this universe. Of course, sometimes Lord Shiva is considered to be more powerful than Lord Brahma. But on the other hand, the way that Lord Shiva manifests is generally as the son of Lord Brahma. Someone could even say Lord Brahma is above Lord Shiva in that way. And the way of becoming Lord Brahma, of getting that position, requires very severe austerities that Hiranyakashipu was undertaking. Generally, to gain the post of Lord Brahma, one has to follow one's dharma within the Varnashram system for 100 births. If in any one of those 100 births, one messes up just a little, then it's that birth doesn't count. And after performing all of those austerities, all of that punya, that pious activity, one can become rewarded with being a Brahman. Which of all the positions in the material world is a very enjoyable position. Generally, as one goes up in the universal structure, the enjoyment, the material enjoyment there increases. And that's why when one has pious activities, one gets sent to the heavenly planets. And Lord Brahma's planet is the topmost. So he has the most material enjoyments in the universe. Therefore, one has to be very pious to become Lord Brahma. And this is part of the system of gradual purification. In that, in following the Varnashram system, one gradually becomes purified. That is the point of the Daiva Varnashram system, that by doing the various yagyas and duties, etc., one gradually becomes purified by focus on Lord Vishnu. Anytime or anywhere that one is in the Varnashram system, one has some connection with Lord Vishnu. If one is doing yagya, one has to invite always the Yageshwar, the Lord of the Yagyas. Otherwise, it doesn't count. And the Lord of Yagya is none other than Vishnu. You have to give him his share. That's actually why one of the accusations that Hiranyakashipu levied against Lord Vishnu is that, he's just helping the demigods because they are bribing him with shares of sacrifice. And that is why he has become partial to them. And by this practice of anashram, one becomes gradually elevated. And if one does this for 100 births, that gives one enough time to become very purified. Because all the demigods are devotees of Lord Vishnu or Krishna. Of course, generally, they are mixed devotees. They are worshippers of Vishnu, but also have material desires for position, opulence, material enjoyment. And even Lord Brahma, of course, our Lord Brahma that we currently have, is the head of our sampradaya. But in general, it's not that every Lord Brahma is a pure devotee of Krishna or Vishnu. It's possible that it is possible that he is a pure devotee, and thus he goes back to Godhead after his time as Lord Brahma. But it's also that he just gets merged into Lord Vishnu, or even that he becomes one of the lower species of life. Of course, if you're Lord Brahma, everything is a lower species of life. But in a lower position. But the Vedic system is set up this way, that if one wants to attain a higher position, whether that is of the demigods or Lord Brahma, or whatever, one has to, at least at some level, become a devotee of Lord Vishnu. And this is the way that it is supposed to work. Of course, as devotees, we understand that endeavoring for the higher planets is foolish as well. It's not actually the goal of life. But within the broader Vedic system, it is one of the paths that is authorized in a certain sense. The Karma Kanda path is within the Vedic purview. So that if one wants to go to the heavenly planets, that in a certain sense is okay. And the system is set up so that one doesn't make too much of a ruckus in society while trying to do so. It's actually set up so that one's activities are aligned with the rest of humanity and non-humanity that you're living with, so that to do so, one executes punya and becomes gradually purified, and is able to take up that position in a way that is working within Krishna's system. But that is not Hiranyakashipu's viewpoint. As we will read in the next verse, what Hiranyakashipu wanted to do was that he wanted to reverse the results of punya and papa. He wanted to have good results, that there be good results for bad activities and bad results for good activities, because that's his demoniac nature. As we read in Bhagavad Gita, Pravritam Cha Nivritam Cha, that the demons don't know what is proper activity and what is improper activity. So they always try to reverse what is good and bad. And this was what Hiranyakashipu wanted to do once he took up the post of Lord Brahma. That he was thinking, I shall reverse the results of pious and impious activities, that I shall overturn all the established practices within this world. And we see also that this demoniac mentality is also current within human society, especially within this Kali Yuga, in that everything that was deemed appropriate is actually inappropriate. And everything that is deemed inappropriate, not everything, but many things which are deemed inappropriate are actually appropriate. There are so many examples that one could give. One that comes to mind is with meat eating. You find, even doctors, people who are supposed to be learned, say that, oh, you have to have meat to live. Bad things will happen if you don't have the protein that is there in meat. I recall hearing that, back during the heyday of the anti-cult movement, one of their accusations of the Hare Krishna movement was that, because they were enforcing a vegetarian diet, that it makes the adherents weak-minded and therefore more susceptible to mind control. That's such ridiculous thing, but it's propaganda that's going on this way. That oh no, you have to have meat. There's even, I've mentioned before, there's even this movement for the carnivore diet, that one basically only eats meat. And then some of the more extreme variations only eats cow. And this is held up by certain people as a very good thing. And actually, of course, meat, even from a physical standpoint, is not healthy for people. What to speak of the karmic implications, even just on the platform of physical health. It is disastrous. It's been linked to all sorts of cancers and heart disease, this and that. But because people are attached, no, we have to have meat. There's so many other ways that people reverse what is good and bad. I'm doing some writing, and one of the things that I'm working on, I'm trying to establish or to give examples of times when the scientific establishment has been taken over by other interests, whether ideological or financial. And one of the examples that I am writing about, I've been researching, is that of the tobacco industry, where they employed what is now known as the tobacco strategy to produce doubt in the minds of the public. You can see all of these ads. 9 out of 10 doctors smoke Chesterfield cigarettes. They recommend all this to the patients. And there's even one that I think is for an ad from Camel cigarettes. And a little girl that said she'll live to be 100. Because when she's old enough, she'll smoke Camel cigarettes. It's recommended by her doctor. There's one that said, our cigarettes are as pure as the water you drink. So this is another example, the reverse of what is considered good, what is considered bad. Because we should act in what is good is acting in Krishna's system. And what is bad is going against Krishna's system. That is what I was saying earlier with the point of how to generally become Lord Brahma. And the reason for that one gets gradually purified by working Krishna's system, versus Hiranyakashipu's determination of becoming the supreme person within this universe. So we should endeavor to work in Krishna's system. Generally, when we come into devotional service, we come with so many strange ideas from the general culture around us. As I was saying, the entire culture in Kali Yuga is there, and it basically reverses everything that is actually the proper standard. The 4 principles of pious life, that is the 4 regulative principles, are considered anathema, because the 4 principles of sinful life are, the 4 principles of modern Kali Yuga civilization. And if one even suggests giving up intoxication, meat eating, illicit sex and gambling. One, it's impossible. There's actually one during the early attempts bringing the Krishna consciousness movement to the West. There are some British Lord Zeppelin, I think, when he heard described, I don't think it was even Prabhupada, I think it was one of the other Gaudiya monks.
I don't remember the name.
Yeah, but it was some of the sannyasis that went there for, right? So then, Bhaktisiddhanta sent some of his sannyasis to Britain to preach. They described to one of the British lords the four principles of pious life. They described to Lord Zeppelin. They said, this is impossible for us. We can't do it. Because the Western culture, especially, is built upon these four principles of sinful life. We come in with these ideas of what is good and what is bad from whatever culture we happen to grow up in. But we should not stay attached to such demoniac culture. And we should try as much as possible to come to operate within Krishna's system. And in that way, become gradually purified. And we should avoid as much as possible trying to import Western culture into Krishna's system, because Prabhupada's mission was actually the other way around, that we import Krishna's system into Western culture. Because actually, if we operate within Krishna's system, it helps us become more Krishna conscious. Of course, this is true by the viewpoints and approach to life that actually form the basis of any culture that we get from reading Prabhupada's books and other such activities. But even the so-called external things, what we eat, how we dress, does affect our consciousness. I remember reading actually a study about enclothed cognition, where they did an experiment where they had 3 groups, and they gave each group some sort of cognitive testing. One was the control group, so they just had them come in, take the test, and then leave. The second group was handed white coats. So, these are lab coats that doctors wear, their doctor's coats. Then the third group was handed the same white coats, but said these are artists' smocks. Like what artists wear to keep the paint off their clothes. And the group, and they had them put these coats on while doing the cognitive test. And the group that was told that it's a doctor's coat did better on cognitive tests than the other groups. And the one that was told it's like an artist's smock did worse. Because of course we have the mentality that doctors are smart people, and artists they don't get into testing and all that stuff. So these externals do help us become more Krishna conscious. So when we work within Krishna's system, internally and externally, or when we work externally, it helps us think of Krishna internally. While if we are engaging with the trappings of Western culture, it helps us think of Western culture, which is not the consciousness that we are trying to endeavor for. So we should try to do everything that we can, both internally and externally, to help us think of Krishna, to try to work in Krishna's system. Of course, the goal of life isn't to, wear Vaishnava clothes and, eat Vedic food. It doesn't end there. But since these things are helpful for determining Krishna consciousness, for helping develop Krishna consciousness, we should try to come to practice Krishna's culture, which Srila Prabhupada has so painstakingly tried to develop within the Western countries and import to the Western countries. And in that way, make it easier to become Krishna conscious. So I'll end here. We have about 15 minutes. Are there any comments, questions, complaints? Prabhu, do you have anything?
You're saying that small test, it's surprising. Just the idea that they were aware that something became Irish words made them do better.
Yeah, it's enclosed cognition is just dressing the part helps you act the part. And in so many other ways as well, right? If you dress like a doctor or a nurse, for example, you go walking around the hospital, most of the time, people won't stop you, right? Unless they need some medical help. But if you're trying to get in somewhere, then dressing like you're that thing makes it seem like, oh, okay, he's supposed to be here. So
that can be dangerous too.
To bring up a point of Western culture, if you ever see heist movies, right? They put on like a security uniform or whatever, and then just walk in. All right. Any other comments, questions?
I thought it was an interesting conclusion here in your passage you came to say, I'm a channel. I have as many lifetimes as I need to try to become Lord Brahma. He found it to be interesting. Because if that's the case, then he should know, or he would know that even if he becomes Lord Brahma, it's eventually he has to take another birth, so he can't hold on to it.
Yes, that is true. That he knows he'll eventually have to take another birth. Although it does seem like Hiranyakashipu might think that Lord Brahma, and it's because he asked Lord Brahma to be immortal, right? But that would just seem to imply that Lord Brahma doesn't die. But then if Lord Brahma doesn't die, how does he plan on taking his position? Not unless he's thinking like, oh, there'll be another universe created for me. Then of course it goes to like, well, if there's another universe created, who's doing the creating, right? So there's that aspect. But on the other hand, if you look at the different Vedic schools, right? The Karma Mimamsa school actually does think like this, that they do recognize that the living being and time is eternal, but they don't think that there's anything outside the realm of samsara. So they also think that samsara is eternal, in the sense that you go up and you're the heavenly planets or even Lord Brahma, And, you stay there for a while, and yeah, you come back down, but then you just, commit more pious activities. And then you go back up. Uh, and uh, oh, and the next step is that one realizes, oh, like what's the use of this going up and down and up and down in the cycle of birth and death? Maybe I should figure out there's something more in this. And then, one can start on jnana, or if one has the blessings, mercy of a pure devotee, one can start on bhakti. Okay. All right, we have about 10 minutes left. If there's any final.
One thing I heard over on who said, I'm remembering, he said, the demons, they know that this is supreme controller, but they think it's a post, and they can take that post. And whereas the first devotee, don't think it's rather we recognize it's a person. He's always there, and we just serve him. So I guess that's like such a huge distinction. If someone thinks I can be God too, then no matter how much knowledge I get, I'm just gonna try to do something nasty with it.
Yeah, the point was made that many times that the demons also realize there's a supreme controller, but they think that it's a post that can be taken over. Of course, the devotees realize that it isn't, and they just try to serve the supreme controller. Yeah, and this is true, that even when the non-devotees recognize some sort of supremacy, then it's either one that they want to take for themselves, or one that ultimately serves them. That is a order supplier for them. Even religious processes many times have the focus on one's own enjoyments, and that God is there to help you enjoy. One time I heard this Catholic priest talking. He says his mission is to help people go to heaven and enjoy God, not be enjoyed by God, but to be the enjoyer of God. And there's that mentality that keeps you in the material world. Instead of God should enjoy me, I should enjoy God. Yeah.
That's the true religion instructs you to be satisfied with the bare necessity while cultivating Krishna consciousness. I think even though I have said it, very nice statement. Man is not knowledge of the word of God. There's so many things when you're uncertain. They use the word servant many times. It's interesting that people still screw out something like that.
Yeah, so in every spiritual process, there is some idea of service. But of course, they're each given according to what the people at the time could understand, right? If you went to, for example, we understand that Jesus was a Shaktivesh avatar, that he went to preach among the first century Jews. But if you think about the time period there, right? The Pharisees and animal sacrifice and all of these things. If he started talking about, Radha Krishna Lila, I look at the little that he did, and then they killed him for it, right? And then, of course, you can also say the point that, who knows, with this example specifically, who knows if the Christianity we have today is actually the Christianity that Christ taught. That's another whole issue that we don't have time to get into. Dinapalika Mataji, see your virtual hand.
Haribol, well, you just said we might not have time to get into it, but I was discussing with a devotee last night about other people practicing other religions and what's their destination. Like, I would probably the majority, if they're just kind of like card-carrying members, then I don't know, maybe they just take an animal birth. But I'm wondering about those who, are trying to, like a Mother Teresa or somebody that's like really trying to apply themselves. But they might still be, eating meat because maybe they haven't been exposed to something else. Have you just heard anything that, yeah, you've just heard anything about this? Like, what is the destination of
Yes,
those kind of people?
I would say that there are, I guess, three sorts of possibilities. I don't necessarily have like Shastric, like specific Shastric backing, but I don't know anywhere Prabhupada said, oh, this, and this. But just thinking, I've thought on this matter before, so I'll just say my thoughts. Is that, yeah, like just a general like card carrying, like, oh yeah, I go to church Sunday, but not super serious about God or things like that. They will go to wherever their karma takes them. They're under the laws of material nature. So if they do pious, to the extent they do pious activities, they'll have good results, and impious activities, bad results. And then you have those who are sincerely seeking. And they do actually want to know about God. And then they have found Christianity. Maybe they weren't ready or weren't exposed to Krishna consciousness. But they are sincerely seeking the absolute truth. They will still enjoy and suffer the results of their karma, but will also be given a chance to make more advancements on the path and actually come to the platform of Krishna consciousness. So who knows, maybe some of our Hare Krishna children that were born in the movements were very sincere Christians in their former birth, and they got the chance to make more advancement. And then, of course, there is also the possibility that one does learn about Krishna or Vishnu, maybe one gets a Bhagavad Gita or something. But one is attached to the pastimes of Jesus, the way that he taught Krishna consciousness. And then one becomes a pure devotee of Vishnu, but attached through Jesus as a guru. In which case, there's nothing wrong with worshiping Jesus like that. And I would say that since you're worshiping Vishnu or Krishna, one could even go back to the spiritual world. So who knows, maybe there's a little corner of the spiritual world with those in the mood of Christian Vaishnavas. But just to be clear on that point, one still has to worship Vishnu or Krishna, not that one just, worships Jesus unconnected with Vishnu and then goes back to the spiritual world. Although if one is sincere with that, one can become a devotee in one next life. That's my viewpoint on it, at least. So hopefully that made a bit of sense.
That was really helpful.
Yeah.
I was also thinking while you're speaking about how, like on Sankirtan even, I've learned to tell people like, oh, just if they're not so open, then it's like, okay, we'll just encourage them in their own religion and to chant the names of God. So, but I want to make sure I'm not just doing that and then they're going to an animal birth the next, like I'm encouraging them to. So yeah, thank you. Your response made a lot of sense.
Yeah. Gary, you have your hand up?
Haribo Prabhu, thank you for
Haribo.
class. Yeah, so karma, thank you for answering that question the way you did, because it indicates that karma is actually very complicated.
Yeah.
Sometimes as practicing devotees, we can say that meat eating guarantees an animal body, but it's not quite as clear cut as that. The examples that Prabhupada would give was just to give us an idea of the action and reaction law that's embedded in karma. For example, like Ian Stevenson's work on the transmigration of children, children remembering their previous lifetimes. These kids were actually meat eaters, but they actually had a human form in their next life. Similarly as well, practicing devotees, they've read the astrological charts, and not everyone was actually an animal in their previous lifetime. They're coming from, and not everybody was a vegetarian in their previous lifetime. Some devotees are coming from human forms, and they were meat eaters in their previous lifetime. But as we said, they had sufficient pious credit to actually give them a human form. So it's basically it's a pretty complex topic. But yeah, also the other idea that came to mind is, when Gurudev explains karma, and he says that, citing Prabhupada, that when one takes birth, it's not that you just become a dog or you just become a cat or a human. You become every single species in that specific category. So even when we look at humans, the 400,000 species, some of them are actually outside of Varnashram Dharma, Lechas, Yavanas, the humanoid forms. But the majority of humans, like actually the majority of human species, are outside of Varnashram Dharma. The high castes, the Brahmanas, Vaishyas, and the Kshatriyas. Kshatriyas, okay, on occasion they would eat meat, but generally speaking, the high castes don't eat meat. And it's actually a minority if you look at it. From the 400,000 species of humans, a lot of them actually eat meat, and still they're getting humanoid forms. So I just wanted to amplify that point about the complexity of karma.
Yes, karma is extremely complex, which is why it takes more than human intelligence to arrange all the actions and reactions of the pious and sinful activities. I was one time talking with Rameshwar Prabhu, and he was saying that he's expressing this complicated subject in the with the example of the atom bombs, uh, in the sense that some intelligence had to arrange that everybody who had the karma to get vaporized by an atom bomb had to be in one of those two cities at the exact right time, uh, and have the other results of their pious and sinful activities as well. So yeah, the laws of karma are extremely complicated, and we can't necessarily understand all of them. In the Shastras, there is some discussion about, oh, if you do this, then you end up as this. If you do this, you as this. But in the general case, yeah, it's too complicated for us to figure out. So we should just become pure devotees and leave the whole mess behind. All right.
One question I had relates to the idea that externalities basically give a good guardrail for maintaining the cultivation of consciousness, or even like point consciousness in a certain direction. So in other words, it gives it like a vector, a direction, externalities. Some externalities, though, they can actually get a lot of emphasis, especially in, social or socialized forms of self-realization, like bhakti yoga. Other forms of self-realization, they mode as isolation, like yoga, Ashtanga yoga, you isolate yourself from society.
Yeah.
But with bhakti yoga, I think other types of Buddhism as well, which are very social, you find that the externalities, they can get a lot of emphasis and therefore even detract the practitioners. So for example, the controversy in our society is that did Prabhupada actually institute the wearing of dhotis or not? Because there is one side of the aisle cites that, well, a conversation between Prabhupada and, I don't know if it was Samal Krishna Maharaj, that where he was responding saying, no, I didn't tell you to wear dhotis. So like, yeah, and then another side of the aisle is that no, it actually maintain our consciousness. So yeah, to what extent does examples, this point is an important principle, that externalities do help us put guardrails in place, maintain our consciousness. What examples are least controversial? That's really my question.
Sorry,
So that
you're breaking up a little bit. Can you repeat just like what the question?
the question is, can you cite another example that's least controversial in social forms of self-realization? Because clothes are pretty controversial.
I mean, and ones that are less controversial.
Yeah.
I mean, there's examples that I could cite, uh, them being more or less, or them being less controversial, I don't know per se, but another one that comes up sometimes is, of course, food. You know, Vedic cuisine versus Western cuisine. And then, you could generally also have the, uh, one example of culture is also the ways that we relate with each other, especially the ways that the two genders relate with each other. Where in Western culture, It's, everybody's all mixed up. And with Vedic culture, of course, there is separation. I know you asked for less controversial examples, and I might have given you more controversial examples, but I don't know if I can think of one that is less controversial than, Dodi and Sari.
No, those work. Thank you.
Yeah. Parka Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Bible.
Thank you for your class. I wanted to add a few comments regarding the issue of animal births and the extreme danger of descending into the animal species. I have heard Srila Prabhupada explain that not only does one sometimes have to rotate through many different varieties of a particular species, but that once descending into the animal species in general, the result is that you first undergo a process of descending through all of the different species, all the way to rock bottom. You go all the way to the very lowest of all the species, some microbe or whatever, Indragopa or whatever it may be. You descend all the way to the bottom, and then gradually, very gradually, because it's not just a straight linear progression. You go up and down, sideways, and all over the place. So you go all the way to the bottom gradually, and then gradually you ascend again, but perhaps over millions upon millions of births, just countless. And that the chances of getting human birth again are exceedingly slim, just extremely, extremely rare. So descended in the animal species is described by Krishna as the most dangerous type of fear. It's really, really bad. It's a very bad thing. For those who are engaged in a mix of pious activity under the tenets of some particular religious system, but simultaneously performing impious acts such as, engagement in animal slaughter and eating of animals. Obviously, they have to reap the fruits of both their activities, both pious and impious, and it can happen in many ways. There may be births in which there is a mix of good reactions and bad reactions, or they may have a birth in which they burn up a bunch of bad reactions predominantly, and then another birth in which perhaps there are a predominance of the reactions of bias activities. And it may take many births to receive the reactions for actions taken in a single birth. It's only in the human species that you have these types of reactions, that you have to undergo suffering or enjoyment based upon your pious or impious actions. But in the animal species, while there is not, the activities of an animal are not necessarily sinful. They're not pious, but neither are they sinful. They're just conducted by the modes of nature. They're doing what their particular species does. But nonetheless, it conditions their consciousness. The subtle body carries the impressions of their activities and leads them to another birth that will accommodate their desires and their mentality. And so once in the animal species, you just kind of um, circulate around in the soup of animal species. You just go all over the place, up and down, this way and that way, um, uh, and there isn't necessarily a clear progression through the species. But Srila Prabhupada did mention descending to the bottom before you get a chance to ascend again. But you don't just necessarily ascend. You can go up to some particular level, then down again, and up again and down, and you may do that innumerable times and never get a chance for human birth. Anyway, the point is, it's really, really bad. It's extremely dangerous. It's a terrible, terrible condition to get into, and so very important to be careful about it. There are descriptions in Shastra. I'm thinking particularly of uh, Garuda Purana, for example, in the Pretakanda section there. It pertains to all different aspects of death and dying, and it also talks about all of the various types of reactions that one incurs after the performance of different types of sinful activities. So it's like the fifth canto. There are descriptions of the different hellish planets. But Purana in the Pretakanda goes into much more detail. There's many, many, Srimad Bhagavatam is just a very brief summary. The Pretakanda goes into much more detail and describes many more different types of situations. But among them, it also describes that in some instances, descent into the animal species is relatively brief, that one may take 5 births as a vulture, for example, and then return to the human species, depending upon the nature of their sinful activity. So it's not necessarily that you drop into the animal species and then you're just lost there for millennia. Sometimes the duration in the animal species is a very specific period of time. There are many descriptions in Shastra that, a specific number of births in this species and that species. You start out as a snake for 5 births, and then you become a goat for 10 species, lifetimes, I mean to say. So those kinds of descriptions are there. Bottom line is, as you say, it's very complicated. It's extremely complicated.
Yeah.
You mentioned the effect of different lifestyles on one's consciousness, and I've mentioned a few times in the past, it's worth repeating, that when Srila Prabhupada was here at Gita Nagari, he took the time to explain that that simply by living the lifestyle that was exemplified by Krishna, the example that he set of living simply in Vrindavan, that by itself is already Krishna consciousness, just to live as Krishna lived. Following that example, that constitutes Krishna consciousness, he explained. So that's interesting. And And so he charged us with the responsibility of setting an example of how that is done. He wanted to demonstrate a very sharply contrasting mode of living to the modern or Western direction that society has taken, and with the explanation that Western culture, which relies heavily on the products of industry, fosters the consciousness that there is no, God is irrelevant because we can manufacture whatever we need. Whereas living simply as Krishna lived in Vrindavan, you cannot overlook the fact that you are dependent upon Krishna for your very survival. You're depending upon the products of agriculture, which means you're dependent upon the rains and the land and so many different factors which are beyond your control. You have to depend upon Krishna's mercy for your sustenance. So it always fosters Krishna consciousness. But beyond that, Srila Prabhupada explained that the lifestyle itself fosters Krishna consciousness. Anyway, thought I would make mention of that. Thanks again, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, when you were speaking, the about the dangers of falling into lower species of life, the pastime of Maharaj Nirga came to mind, in that I think most people here would be aware that there's some misunderstanding where he accidentally gave the same cow in charity twice. And for that, he had to spend years as a uh, lizard, yeah, in a well. And he did so much pious activity, and that was, from the descriptions, it seemed like basically his only sinful activity. Uh, and, he still had to take lower birth. And I was just thinking that, the one thing that he did to get that, um, it was a accident, and, it's not like anybody actually got hurt from it or anything like that. It didn't seem so bad, at least compared to the things that we get up to these days. But still, he had to take lower species of life. So, yeah, sinful activities, complicated, and are uh, dangerous, and that there's every danger of falling into the lower species and spending who knows how long there. And I always appreciate the point that you bring up uh, of living as Krishna lived. Hopefully we can try to move in that direction. Yes, Prabhu, you have more comments?
Yeah, with regards to King Nirga, part of the complication of his reaction was it was not simply making the mistake of offering a calf twice, but that it resulted in disturbing the brahmanas.
Yeah.
It was that the brahmanas were adversely affected. They were offended, so it was largely the consequence of offending the brahmanas, which is really really serious,
Yeah.
and even more serious than offending brahmanas is offending a Vaishnava. So misappropriating the property of a devotee. It sometimes happens that devotees um, sometimes they take someone else's property, and the consequences for that are really really dire. Consider, for example, that King Nirga took he had to remain as a lizard in a well for 64,000 years, and that the golden age of Krishna consciousness is supposed to last 10,000 years.
Oh.
It means that if you had to take 64,000 births in the animal species, you would miss the entire golden age by a huge margin.
Yeah.
It would be disastrous. So you'd wind up returning to the human species at the worst stage of Kali Yuga, when there is no opportunity for Krishna consciousness. So don't nip other people's property. It's really bad. It's really, really bad. Hare Krishna.
All right, well, yeah, thank you for your comments, but do you have anything?
This is going way back to the purport. Why is it that Hiranyakashipu and there was another demon, the head splitter demon who went after Shiva? Why is it that their made up austerities got results? You know, I don't think they were following any Vedic injunctions with the stuff they were doing, were they?
Yeah, the to stay in a yogic posture and control the mind in that way
Oh, really?
is yoga is a bona fide form of austerity. It's impossible to follow nowadays.
That's what Dhruva Maharaj did then.
Yeah, yeah. So the system of yogic austerities is the recommended process for Satya Yuga. Because you have the determination and lifespan and so many other things that if you live 100,000 years, then you can spend 10,000 of them standing in one place, right? But in Kali Yuga, not only do we not have the lifespan to do this, we don't have the determination, these things, and also a lot of knowledge has been lost. The various times that, well, I mean, first of all, the knowledge wasn't necessarily written down, because in previous yugas, you could just hear and remember. You didn't need like a reference. Then even the stuff that was written down between the Muslims and the British, a lot of things were destroyed. So yeah, the system that Hiranyakashipu and others took of yogic austerities is a bona fide system, just very difficult to practice and impossible nowadays. There you go. Okay, I think we will end here. Srimad Bhagavatam ki.